Yes, welcome back to the Magic Sponge podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Brien, I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on social media. Co-host James, mate, you are here. It is a week after Magic Round. I think we're both still recovering. I had a bit of a birthday bash last night too, so probably the two biggest weekends of my calendar year in terms of socializing and beer intake, I think. So I am running on empty right now, mate. Please tell me that you have recovered a little bit better than me from Magic Round and you're ready to rumble tonight.
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll, Brian. I'm feeling pretty fresh, to be fair. I had a fairly straightforward week this week. Just obviously had a fairly low-key Mother's Day as well. So shout out to all the mums and happy Mother's Day to them and you and yours. But yeah, you've done well, mate. You've gone back to back on the big sessions. So I would be feeling a bit dusty as well, given our relative age associated with that. Things don't bounce back as quickly as they once used to.
Yeah, mate. I think I definitely shout out to my mother and my wonderful wife, mother of our girls, who we went out for birthday last night. And it is my birthday, so theoretically should get my way with a few things. But I think I sent out a message on the social channels being like, "Sorry guys, no footy for me tonight. Just gonna focus on the night out." But we were wandering around the casino, mate, and it was just so crazy. We just came across this thing called, I don't know if you've heard of it, a sports bar. It was just
Amazing.
mental. And yeah, just
incredible concept.
Big, huge footy game up on the wall. And I was like, well, it is my birthday, potentially could spend a little bit of time here. So parked up and watched. And it was fantastic timing because we rolled in for that second half of the Doggies Raiders game where the Doggies just mounted an epic comeback. And mate, the sports bar was going mental. Must say, and I think this is a suggestion to you too, James. Like, I've been to the States. I love the States, love the vibe in the States around sports and, sports bars and Vegas, those kind of things. This was as close as replicating that for me. Like, Beck and I were sitting there just like, this is exactly like America, like in terms of their sports bars and all that kind of stuff. So if anyone's looking for somewhere to watch the footy or go with some mates, and like my suggestion, James, is that we go there at some point and do a footy game or something, because it was epic. It was really, really good. I'm not a big casino gambler kind of guy, but I'm a big sports guy. In case you didn't know, James, a big sports guy. And yeah, just can't speak highly enough about it. So anyone who's kind of 50-50 on the fence, definitely hit it up. All right, let's get into it. We are on YouTube. Head on over there, subscribe if you can. It gets us in front of more eyeballs. And we're also everywhere you get your podcast. So, subscribe, give us a review, recommend to a friend. It all helps. We are your one-stop shop for all things injury analysis in the NRL. We loop everything back to Supercoach and Fantasy as always. But let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by Pain Pod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Round 10 injury wrap-up, Brian. We'll start with the HIAs as per usual. So the three names on the list tonight are Izack Tago, Jackson Ford, and Izack Faasuamaleaui. Anyone you want to mention in a bit more detail here for the HIAs this week, Brian?
I think pretty straightforward. Tago, they've got a bye next week, so he won't, more than likely won't miss any games. I guess the HIAs those three were pretty straightforward. There are a couple others, mates, where, there were a couple of passes. I think Braden Trindle today was lying pretty stationary after smashing his head into the ground. So as per usual, there's a few out there that I got plenty of questions about, but can't touch them with a 10-foot pole. It's just more HIA merry-go-round.
Yeah, probably nothing really to add there, Brian. Hey, and they're not really any fantasy relevant names there, to be honest. So we don't need to touch on that for much longer. For the Eels versus the Finns, so JMK was ruled at pre-game with sort of an exacerbation of that leg cut that he nursed from a couple weeks back, I think, Brian. Was quite a deep sort of thigh laceration, so he's been ruled out for a little bit longer. We've heard word that Jaeman Hopgood's been nursing a back concern. That probably explains why his minutes are way, way, way down, so it might be good to speak to that. And then lastly, Bailey Simonsson, really rough luck here, coming back from ACL, probably game 1 or game 2 this season for him, wasn't it? He's been diagnosed with a foot fracture, so he'll be missing for 8 to 10 weeks, I think, Brian. Pretty hard luck for the Eels.
Yeah, mate, I think I got a few questions. Is like, could foot fractures be linked to training, or have the Eels stuffed up? And I'm like, guys, like all of these. Well, no, sorry, the Mitch Moses one is just a result of he had that past nasty fifth met fracture, which has a high re-injury rate to start with. But both Simonsson and Zach Lomax have both been contact injuries. So yeah, nothing to do with anything untoward from the Eels there. Simonsson has a cuboid fracture, to be specific.
Oh, wow, okay.
So got a little bit of detail there. So look, not the worst bone ever, but still a pretty tricky one, which is why like someone like Lomax, he's coming back in like 5 weeks, I think, whereas with Simonsson, it's expected to be that little bit longer. The cuboid does sort of absorb a fair bit of pressure, during those footy movements. So it's not one that you can probably rush all that much, especially if it's a bit of a nasty fracture. So 8 to 10 weeks for him. Jaeman Hopgood with his back issue. This is a shout out to Rugby League Guru. I think it was in his Roo Crew, his Patreon kind of thing. He put out that he'd heard that Hopgood's still struggling with his back after that surgery last year. And I mean, James, like, I'm sure if we go back and especially listen to you, I know you deal with a lot of this, these backs where they get surgery. It doesn't mean that everything goes away. There's still risk of sort of ongoing concerns and those kind of things. And it sounds like Hopgood is dealing with that. He's just someone where, if he's dealing with it now, he could be dealing with it for the rest of the season. He could need to have 4 weeks off, to let it settle and then come back. It's just a situation that for any Eels fans out there or any, SuperCoach aficionados who either have him in draft or we're looking at him in classic. I mean, I know before we jump to JMK, I know you've discussed Hopgood as a bit of a, potential, like we could buy low on him and he could be, coming out the other side and go better for the rest of the season. But for me, there's just way too much uncertainty with this. This could linger for too long. Sort of what are your thoughts on him now after hearing this news?
I agree with you now, Brien. It's sort of funny timing how it all came to be. We mentioned it last week and I went, he's going to be 480. There's got to be more minutes in there. Para running dead last. Like they've got to be trotting this guy out for longer. But that does explain why his minutes are down if he is nursing something that was a big enough issue for him last year to miss the rest of the season with microdiscectomy surgery. And he missed game 3, I believe, as well, Origin-wise, didn't he? So he missed out on Origin selection as well. So obviously, if you're keeping a Queenslander out of an Origin jersey, it must be something serious. So for Jaeman, like I hope it's not something that's going to be lingering around. It probably begs the question, though, Brien, like, if you're para, you're running dead last, you're going to come into a tricky time. Where do you put the handbrake on him here? Like, do you keep going out every week? Do you give him a couple of weeks? Is that going to make enough difference? I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky scenario, but I'd be trying to avoid it for Supercoach purposes, but certainly.
Yeah, mate. For me, I just think if these, this kind of is actually legit in terms of he's still dealing with it, mate. The talk, I see it on Twitter every second week. People post up like, "Oh my God, look at the New South Wales Cup forward pack for the Eels," because it's just stacked with guys like, stacked. Like I know people are going to laugh, but like Bryce Cartwright, Ryan Madison, these kind of guys, like. I know they're not, that they're not probably what they used to be, but if you've got a guy like Jaeman Hopgood, who I assume is a big part of your future, or if he's not, he should be. Yeah, like you, and I know players want to play, and I get that, but yeah, if it is his back, it's the same issue he's been dealing with. Give him a month off and just like try and let it settle down, rehab it a bit better. That's kind of where I'm at with it. As we said, like it's not confirmed news as yet, but talking off the back of that, if it is legit, that's where I'd be heading with that.
One thought, Brien, like there is like they do play through to round 15 now, but they round 15 by play 2 games and round 18 by. You could sort of take those 4 weeks and miss 2. So maybe they're just like, we'll get to mid-season and we'll just reassess it then. But that's still 5 games away. So,
and is he doing much for him, playing 30 minutes?
Is that really changing the outcome of the game significantly enough? Like I know, when he's at his best, he's such a good player. But he's really where you get the benefit from Jaeman is his work rate is so high. He saves you on interchange. He gives you more flexibility. He gives you more second phase play. If he's not playing the minutes, I think that really diminishes the return there. So, yeah, I think that's a fair question as well.
Yep, 100%. And then JMK with a leg cut, he copped a blow straight to the wound, and it opened it right back up. And so he had
Hurt
that.
like crazy.
Yeah,
Jesus.
mate. And then like you've got the infection in there, which he had as well. So like the infection sort of concern, there's probably still some lingering infection in there, or some, risk of new infection as well. Yeah, like he's going to be multiple weeks at this point. And I think the Finns have kind of indicated as much because, you've got a cut on top of a cut. You've got an infection probably on top of an infection. It's in a really tricky spot on his like medial. I think it was either his medial or lateral thigh, sort of down around his knee. So an area that can easily cop another blow during a game. It's just not something you want to muck around with. So I mean, it shows you that not all lacerations are made the same. So the Finns are going to have to figure out how to deal with him, I think, for at least the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, I think it's a really tricky scenario now because the Finns have the bye 13, 18 and 21. I just don't know when you could feasibly bring JMK in with that sort of a run. Like he almost looks like a round 22, but that's miles away. And you'll probably have set up your hooker position well and truly by then. So I think he's just off the radar for the rest of this year would be the only other takeaway there. We'll move on to the Knights versus Titans, Brian. We've got a few big names out of this one. So Dave Fifita was ruled out pre-game with ankle surgery. That was off the back of a game for the Ipswich Jets, no less. So who knows what's going on in that situation. There's heaps of media hyperbole floating around. I don't know what the state of play there is with Fifita. The other name who's fantasy relevant is Greg Marzhew. So he was sort of had ice on his lateral knee there. So I haven't heard any detail of his injury. And then the last one was Jayden Campbell. He was returning this week from a high ankle sprain. Obviously put up pretty good points for Supercoach purposes, Brian. There was a little bit of time where he looked a bit to be favouring it, but Jesus, the output was good.
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect example of like, injury, analysis or like, aggravation and those kind of things. It's only a percentage of the entire picture, right? Because I think Jayden Campbell scored about 40 points in one play, and not that I think he played well throughout the entire game, but he was obviously, I think he got caught up in about the 45th minute, got twisted up and was pretty proppy on it. For a good 20 minutes after that. So it just shows you that these high ankle sprains, they are, quite easy to aggravate when you're coming back from them, especially after not having surgery. And Campbell came back pretty quickly from it as well. So it's something where, I probably shied away from him initially because that aggravation can kind of go any direction. He's just as likely to score 90 points as he is to then, need to leave the field because it's too sore or something like that. But I think, off the back of the 90 points, you're very happy if you're a Jayden Campbell holder. And he's still someone, though, for me, I know, maybe I'm just sticking to my guns, but I probably, especially with the bye the week after next, I'd probably just want to chill out and see how he gets through next week before I then make a move on him post the bye. Greg Marzhew with the lateral knee injury. So he had ice on his lateral knee, mate. I know I was, probably not at in my best performance over the weekend, having birthday celebrations and stuff like that. But once again, I'm really disappointed in the TV coverage with a few this weekend because there was just no replays of these kind of more significant, not significant because they didn't few of these guys kind of suffered them and then played through them. But there's a lot of people interested in Greg Marzhew and want to see what happened and those kind of things, not just me wanting to see the mechanism. So he suffered it. I went back and had a look. It was like a knee to knee clash where he copped a knee to the outside of his knee. But that's kind of what it looked like. I couldn't actually see close enough because it was a wide shot. There were legs moving everywhere. And I don't know if it's just my internet connection, but my internet connection is pretty good, James, and I can't seem to get 4K HD, whatever, on KO. It really struggles. So I'm hoping it's just a contusion, like a bone bruise, but I think with anything like that, where it's a bit of an innocuous mechanism, as we've spoken about with knees in the past, you probably go to like a meniscus issue potentially, especially if he was able to play through it for 10, 15 minutes before succumbing to it. So if it's just a contusion, he'll be sweet. He'll be back next week. But if it's a meniscus tear of some sort, he could be facing like, 1 to 2 months on the sideline if it needs like surgery to trim out that damaged portion of meniscus. So I'm a little bit concerned there. Haven't heard any news as yet, and the Knights are pretty slack with their news, so we might not hear anything anytime soon. But hopefully, once people are listening to this, we kind of get somebody, maybe Barry Toohey gets on the line and figure something out for us, mate. The Dave Fifita situation, I'm assuming this is what he was speaking about when he said like, the real reason will come out or whatever for his performance and his dropping. Like, I know people are like, oh, it's it's a fake ankle injury and they're just dropped, blah blah blah. But it's come out from the club that he was playing through, like getting painkilling injections, week in and week out to play this season. We know he had the setback in the offseason. That was something before all of this happened. He still wasn't, and it was a reason we were both off him in the preseason, right? We were kind of going, nah, don't go there. He's still not back at full training so long after his surgical procedure, which was just way longer than expected. So yeah, I think you can put quite a bit to the ankle in terms of his performance this year. Like he obviously is going in to get a clean out and will miss another 3 to 4 weeks. They're probably going to try and clean up some scar tissue, potentially some floating cartilage or bone in there, those kind of things. Hopefully it brings him out the other side doing a bit better. And usually these little cleanups do. But yeah, I know a lot of people are going, oh, he's just been dropped and blah, blah, blah. But I think there is something to this. So he's someone who I personally wouldn't mind a little buy low on if you're in draft potentially, or, in classic kind of, if he comes back. And I mean, coaching decision wise, if Des decides to start him, which it probably doesn't sound like because they're shopping him around. But yeah, I'm hopeful that his performance can improve because his ankle obviously hasn't been right, over the off season into the early season. And I just thank goodness that I didn't jump on to buy. What are your thoughts on any of those three guys? Anything to add there?
No, nothing more to add. I just want to sort of remind everyone what I did with Dave Fifita, which was one of the dumber things that I would have done in fantasy this year. So I think we were off him all off season. So we were like, nah, no good, taking too long. And he got named for the first trial to start, and he played the first 40 minutes. And I was like, all right, I'm back on. And then I got on him for round one, saw him named from the bench, and I've had to deal with the fallout from that. So yeah, it wasn't my best selection in the setup.
Nothing wrong with the vibes pick, mate.
It was a very
vibe pick, yeah.
2% for Fifita, get in my team, has not worked out for me very well. I've been chasing the tail since. So anyway, that's one of my hard luck stories for myself. But anyway, hopefully after this most recent ankle scope, he can be on the track to a better end of season, because once he's up and about, he's definitely good to watch, that's for sure. Rabbitohs v Broncos was the next one, Brien. So big fantasy implications here for Pete Mamouzelos, who was diagnosed with a dislocated elbow. So he's going to be missing, I think, a minimum of 6 weeks is what's sort of been reported there, at least 4 weeks. We're probably between the 4 and 6 week range. And then Ben Hunt from the Broncos is being diagnosed with a high-grade hamstring injury. And then the other one, Jock Madden, is being diagnosed with a pec injury as well. I guess Jock Madden's probably a quick one there, Brien, because he's playing cup at the moment and probably not looking like sneaking into the starting team anytime soon. Pec updates on Jock Madden?
Yeah, I think there was just some talk around him because of Hunty with the hammy, obviously Ezra's probably going to come back in, but it was just like, oh, how's our depth, blah, blah, blah. But by all accounts, the injury was pretty significant. So he could be facing, surgery in 10 weeks on the sideline. So a bit of a blow to the Broncos' depth there. Pete Mamouzelos, also a pretty quick one. Just to explain, I think there was a report from the Daily Telly that says 6 to 8 weeks. That was kind of what was going to be said. So I kind of posted something in the broadcast channel off the back of that. And then Wayne came out and said 4 to 6 weeks. So look, like I'd say plant your flag at 6 weeks. It might be a little bit before that. It might be a little bit after that. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I've had heaps of questions on him. So just to guide there. Mate, Ben Hunt with the hamstring injury. This is probably interesting for footy fans, interesting for physios. This one has been my most enjoyable one to follow along with this weekend, because so he had a hamstring injury. He grabbed he actually grabbed below the knee on his on the injured side, which at the time I was kind of glancing. I'm like, look, you heard the commentary say Achilles, and I'm like, come on, guys, like I swear every time there's a non-contact injury, it's like people like ACL, Achilles. That's all they go for. And I'm like, everyone needs to remember that the most common non-contact injuries are calf and hamstring strains in footy. Like let's just not. We don't need to go straight to worst case scenario unless the guy is like grabbing at like right on the back of their heel, then you can probably be pretty sure. Or if they're, on the ground wailing, holding the front of their knee, then yes, maybe an ACL. But otherwise, yeah, like hamstring and calf are the most common ones. So I think with him, the interesting part was obviously grabbing below the knee. It's important for people to know that the hamstring does run down below the knee. So it attaches in below the knee. It really helps to kind of flex your knee or bend your knee up. That's the purpose. So it has to attach down past the knee to kind of pull that lower leg up. The report from the Courier Mail was that he's torn it off the bone. So down near the knee there, but he's going to be back. He's only going to miss 4 to 6 weeks was the report. And so people are kind of asking a lot of questions in terms of like, is he going to have surgery? How's he going to come back in 4 to 6 weeks? And so I do want to make it clear that you don't need and this includes athletes as well, for distal hamstring. And so that's hamstring tears down around the knee. It's something where there's not a consensus statement in the medical community of like, this is the treatment that you have for a hamstring tear off the bone in this situation. So in terms of comparing surgery versus non-surgery, I did a bit of research today to kind of brush up on it. It's great for my professional development as well to kind of, go out and try and find some case studies and those kind of things, because you have a general idea in your head, but you want to see, because we love reading papers, James. We love it. So
absolutely soaked the thought of you mentioning papers. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh mate, I should start a like an OnlyFans of just like the papers that I read. Yeah, that's right. I'll read it. Yeah, ASMR, that kind of thing. But but I found a few interesting like case studies today, like recent ones of guys from AFL as well, where they've ruptured distal tendons of the hamstring around the knee. One was and the papers mentioned, they're like, look, there is no like gold standard here. It's not like hamstring's the best decision. It's not that surgery is the best decision or not surgery is the best decision. So it's kind of like a case by case thing. What they do mention, and what I've seen in a few patients I've seen, is that if there's a significant retraction, so if when the tendon tears, it kind of shoots back up into the thigh, they usually going to want to do surgery at that point, because there's no real, you lose like the potential for healing and those kind of things when it's shot back up into the thigh. But that is quite rare for that to happen. It usually sits down around relatively where it was. And people ask how can they avoid surgery? And it's because if it's sitting in relatively, the right spot, shall we say, it can scar back to the area. It can scar back to the bone. It can scar back to other tendon. It can scar back to other muscles as well. So it kind of just attaches in. And if you maintain good strength, how's your function? And this one particular one from the AFL, they said, look, we scanned it once at the start, and a bit like your example from the Lions a few weeks ago, they kind of scanned it once, said, yep, okay, that's what it is. We're just going to treat it functionally now and see how it goes. And they just rolled through it. And the guy was back in like 5 weeks from a complete tear. But that, like, he was functioning really well. And once again, we're getting into the real nerdy stuff here, James, but Ben Hunt grabbed on the inner side of his knee. So the biceps, there's 3 biceps muscles. There's 3 hamstring muscles. 1 attaches to the outer side of the knee and 2 on the inner side. The one on the outer side, which is called your biceps femoris, it's the most commonly injured one. And probably, because it's the most commonly injured one, it's the one you rely on the most, whereas the 2 inner ones, they're much rarer to injure. So it's obviously one of those ones that Hunt has injured. So he probably has a little bit less reliance on those muscles too. So that's kind of explains that quick return to play. But I think the overall thing here is that even whether he has surgery or he doesn't have surgery, the timeframes can be pretty similar. There was one case study I read where they came back in 7 weeks, I think, after having surgery for something like this. So it is quite a rare injury, but the recovery times are pretty similar. It just depends on that case-by-case basis, probably talking to a really experienced sports doc who they have at the Broncos and kind of going, what are we going to do here? But if they go non-surgical, I'd still be very surprised at a 4-week return to play. If it is truly torn off the bone and it's not the Courier Mail, just like, repeating something pretty crazy, which, look, it wouldn't be the first time a journo kind of, sprinkles a little salt and pepper or a little bit of mayo on top. But yeah, I think 4 weeks is probably going to be too soon. I would be betting more at that 6-week end if it is a true tear off the bone. But yeah, to explain to people how they can avoid surgery, it can scar in. And probably the best example I give patients when I'm talking to them about this kind of thing is you can have a cut in your skin, right? And some cuts can just heal with a Band-Aid or with some steri strips if it's not too far apart. Then you have scarring, you have a scab form, you have scar tissue form over there, and it can heal. But if that cut is too far separated, then it needs to be brought back together with stitches. And that's the similar sort of thing to that retraction up into the hamstring. It's like, well, if it's retracted too far, it's not going to come back and it's not going to scar over or scab over. So that's where we need to do it. So that's kind of how I explain it to people. James, have I missed anything there? I said about 1 million wrong words and kind of looped my way around, but hopefully that covers it for most people.
No, I got all the details there, Brien. I think it's just worth mentioning, I guess, guys that we mentioned a couple off air that were more proximal injuries, and they were the ones that were a little bit longer. So I think we mentioned Tessie New and Latrell Mitchell, who had surgical repairs for proximal, and they were more in that sort of 10 to 12 week range, I think, from memory. Is there anyone else who had like more of a proximal injury there that we can give for comparison? Because yeah, the distal ones in Ben Hunt's case are much, much quicker than those ones. If you're getting, I guess, your wires crossed there, if you're thinking, oh, this person had that, but they were way longer. We mentioned Latrell and Tessie New. Was there any other ones you can think of?
Yeah, so Andrew McCulloch was one. He was aiming for 12 weeks, but I think the Knights were out of it, so they ended up just leaving him. But the best one we're seeing, when we say proximal, it's up near the buttock. So hamstring attaches from up at the buttock all the way down to below the knee. The quickest one we're seeing is Jared Mullen. He returned in 12 weeks. So, but they pretty much always need surgery. It's very extremely rare for an athlete to not get surgery because they all attach into one spot up there. So if you tear it, you kind of lost all three. Whereas at least here, if you lose one, you've got the other two pretty good. So you can kind of compensate with it there. Mate, I do want to throw to you non-injury related. Now, look, I'm obviously a Finns fan, so this is water off my back, and I just love shithousery. But I want to throw to you because you are the most one-eyed Bronc that I know. But the Latrell try at the end, like, play on, mate. That is some good shit. Once you've banged over a 50-meter field goal, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And I'm all about it. Hopefully you were as well.
Brien, it was objectively the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, you know me. Like, I'm not here for the spirit of the game. Like, if you're here saying not the spirit of the game, no sportsmanship, absolutely skip me with that. Skip me with it. Like, I'm a noted proponent of like do what it needs to be done to get the W. And let's keep the context here. Latrell's just bushed over like a 48-meter field goal in the wet off the left hoof. Unbelievable scenes. He's kept that team in the game the whole time. They get down to the end. They're up by 2. And then Selwyn Cobbo just decides, oh, well, I've had enough. I'm going to walk away from this play the ball. Of course you're going to do that. I have no grudges with Latrell doing that. I reckon it was top shelf. People getting their like feelings hurt about it. I'm like, it doesn't matter. If you didn't rate that or you think it's spirit of the game, who cares? This is a wins and loss business. Like, professional sport does not have time for your feelings. So don't rinse Latrell for it. Like, I've got the Broncos jersey behind me every week. I'm okay with it. I'm more than on board with it. If it was my player doing that, I'd be clapping it from the stands and carrying on and yahooing. So I think Latrell Mitchell doing that all the way play on, and I've got no dramas with it whatsoever, Brien. So I think if you're someone that's like, nah, I don't rate it, it's spirit of the game, I probably wouldn't have a beer with you. Let's just put it that way. That's how I'd like delineate my friendships. I'd be like, did you rate that or not rate that? If people are like, nah, not for me, I'll be like, yeah, don't have much time for that. I'll skip it to something else. So,
Much more a lefties type operator as opposed to a Caxton Dancehall type
absolutely.
operator. I think,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You'll be congregating at lefties with everyone else being like, oh, this hurt my feelings. I didn't like that. It's like, guys, just it's funny. And it's for and against as well. So like just play it on. Like I think from a
Mate.
Bronx point of view, I hope it embarrasses everyone
Yeah.
associated with that game. I hope they're like, you know what? This was a game we should have won. I almost felt like the season premiership was like slipping away as that field goal went over. I could just see the Probe and Summons trophy just disappearing into that sort of set of goalposts. I was like, if there's a time where we don't make it, it'll be that. This will be the time. That'll be like the turning point, the fork in the road or the butterfly effect, so to speak. There.
Mate,
Anything else you want to mention to Latrell? It was good.
I got two rules of rugby league, mate,
Yeah.
that stick with me forever. Number one is wingers stay on the paint. And number
Gospel.
two is play the whistle. And, you know, it just falls into that. The other funny story I've got with this, you know, my old man, Mick Seeney, he loves the Finns, but he loves the Bronx as well. Like he's kind of split between the two. He's a weak fella like that. But mate, he came down to look after the girls yesterday while we went into the casino and stuff like that. And he's like, Mum goes, oh, I woke up on Saturday and said, oh, you know, how you going, Mick? I couldn't sleep. Those bloody Broncos. I just couldn't hear it. Like he was so, and mate, all he wanted to talk about all day. And like he likes the footy.
Him. He's the best.
Mate, he's like, they're just like all the ticking all the boomer boxes. Don't get me wrong. But he was just, and when he heard that Reece Walsh was starting his own YouTube channel, oh boy.
Boy. That would have been just blood in the water for Mick Seeney.
And then I heard him on the phone. I came home today and he wasn't here. And we're like, oh, where's Dad? And Mum goes, oh, he's out the back talking to Beck's dad about the Broncos game. And they're just on the phone, just going on about it. It's Sunday, and these boys are still going on about it. Yeah. So yeah, it's not good times.
He's one of the greats, Mick Seeney. He's an all timer. Like, and for him to be that rolled up. And this is like your dad's a non-drinker as well. So he would have been absolutely blood boiling for days and days and days. You'd love to see it. Like, yeah, it was one of the worst losses we've had, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah. We'll move forward to the Raiders versus the Bulldogs here. Brian, this was another barnstormer of a game, but big fantasy implications here for Matty Nicholson. So it looks, you know, difficult video for me to see. You did well to snap it up, but looks like high ankle injury. We'll be sweating on the amount of time that he misses here because there'll be fantasy fallout relevant there. And then Jaeman Salmon was an ankle fracture out of this one, which was a real shame because there was a lot of good carry on associated with him getting across the line. Weak got a dog in the camera. A lot of chat about, you know, when Jaeman Salmon had an ankle fracture. There's heaps of funny comments on Insta under your thing about, weak gutted ankle fracture dog. And it's pretty funny, but it's pretty funny, but it's pretty grim for Jaeman Salmon. I guess we get involved with the hoopla and the carry on, but ultimately, you know, this is a human being at the end of the day that's fractured his ankle. So he's going to be missing a while, isn't he?
Mate, he's playing well. Like he's playing well this season. You know, Dog's going well. But yeah, a bit of a weird one. He was another one who seemed to suffer it. Like that once again, no sort of mention of the mechanism. I went back and kind of looked through. It seemed pretty innocuous. It looked like it was he had the ice medially, so potentially like a tibia, you know, like a malleolar fracture almost in there. I'm not sure how he would have suffered it. Very interesting. Whether it was like a stressy that kind of, you know, like went from a stress reaction to a stress fracture. Not really sure, but yeah, 8 to 10 weeks. So a bit of a lengthy one for him there. Matty Nicholson, syndesmosis injury. It's what it looks like. The replay wasn't great because Xavier Savage's head is like right over where his ankle is when it happens. So you can't really see which way it goes, but they mentioned syndesmosis post-game. And I was always concerned, especially with his lack of weight bearing, about a potential fibula fracture. And I think they're quite concerned about that as well, is what I've heard too, which that'd be, you know, 6 weeks best case with a pretty, you know, like a standard syndesmosis injury that needs surgery. But if a fracture's involved, you're usually out to that 8 to 10 weeks as well. So I'm all about Zac Hosking, mate. I mean, I was on him in the preseason, and this just clears the clears the way for him. He is, a spoiler alert, one of my targets for SuperCoach Corner this week. You kind of similar?
Yeah, it's certainly way on my radar now. I think I wish that costing was just a bit cheaper price. Like I know he's not expensive, but I think he's sitting in like the early fives at the moment after his game on the weekend because he got some meat. So I really wanted to see him go a little bit less than what he did. But I think he put up 81 or 82 on the weekend just gone. But I think he's got to be in everyone's firm plans. The Raiders buy coverage is really, really good as well, as we know. They don't take the first buy till round 15. So he's someone you probably got to have a little squeeze at there, I would imagine. We'll move forward to the Dragons v the Warriors here. So the Warriors are absolutely flying, Brien, like very vibey, up and about for the Wars. Out of this one, so we've got Toby Couchman from the Dragons with a shoulder injury, big fantasy implications there. But then Bunty Afoa has been reported as a knee injury, and then Erin Clark finally, who's absolutely carving in Supercoach this year, just reported as cramp. So not really major concerns there for Erin Clark. But my God, Brien, what a season he's having.
Yeah, mate, he's huge. He's someone I think I've got in everyone of my draft comps pretty much. And yeah, just immense. Really, really good to see. Yeah, look, it looked like cramp. He ran off at the time, so hopefully it's nothing too crazy. He has had cramp a couple of weeks ago as well. So yeah, maybe something he's dealing with there in terms of having some issue with cramp. Bunty Afoa with the knee injury, he came off. It did look like an MCL kind mechanism. Hopefully not anything to do with the ACL. It always is a potential with those kind of mechanisms, but it was just someone slid down. I think it was Dylan Egan slid down the back of the tackle and fell on his leg and looked like a medial stress kind of injury. So potentially a few weeks on the sideline for, crowd favourite Bunty there. Toby Couchman with the shoulder, that's probably the most interesting one. Came off last week after a pretty innocuous mechanism. Seemed to be struggling with what they said was a burner at the time. He was having those pins and needles down the arm. We spoke about, that at the time, how that can kind of present. But, mate, this makes me worried about instability, like a subluxation or something like that, because the mechanism on now, once again, no replay, and the guy came straight off. Like on this one, I'm like, it's almost unforgivable to not have a replay because he came straight off. It didn't look like there was much in it. Like I didn't see much in the mechanism to be like, I can understand why he's in so much pain. So once again, his threshold for injury was quite low. It didn't take much to hurt his shoulder again. So is there like some instability there that he's playing through? I know people listen to this show to try and give some guidelines, what they should expect, those kind of things. The reason I haven't posted on him yet is because there's no news. There's no mechanism. They didn't give us a good replay on it. The Dragons have given us nothing and no news. So it's like, well, what do I say? Like, what do I say in a post? He had a shoulder injury and went off and he's getting scans. That's pretty much all I've got for you. And then in terms of giving a guideline, this could be something where they opt to continue to play him through it, and just accept that he's at a lower threshold for injury, or, he could need 6 weeks off. He could need immediate surgery. Once again, I try and avoid these days from posting when I don't have much valuable to say, and I don't think I've got much valuable to say on him. In that the only thing is if I was a Dragons fan or somebody who has him in Supercoach or fantasy, I'd just be concerned. Not only, but even if he's named next week, if that's all it took to set his shoulder off this week, that leaves me pretty concerned moving forward. So for me personally, it's turned me off him as a buy, even post round 13, pretty much completely, because there's other good options in around there. Where are you at with him? Because I know you've mentioned him a few times too.
He's just been so good, Brien. I just look at him as like dual front row, second row. He's been putting up big scores, but he's dropped a bit of cash recently. So I think just given minutes are down as well, and he was forced on the field early, so that doesn't make sense. I'm sort of telling you what you already know, but it probably would be a hold off and wait and see on this situation until we hear any firm detail. So I don't think he sort of should be on your plans there in the short term or maybe even medium term as it stands at the moment. I think for the Dragons, just for those playing along, they've got sort of the round 12 bye and then the round 16 bye, and then they play all the way through from round 17 on. So I think if you really want a Dragons player, the best possible time you could launch in there would be round 17 onwards, because they played round 17 through. So just one to consider if you're thinking maybe playing on the Dragons there. They do buy in round 12 and round 16. The next game was the Cowboys and the Panthers. Another good game. It was a good weekend of footy, but Jason Talmalolo was really at pre-game with a calf injury. Then Maverick Geyer missed last week, I believe, Brian, with an MCL injury. I think they're reporting 4 to 6 weeks there, so probably at least moderate grade for his MCL, I'm assuming.
Yeah, 100%. So I actually heard 6 to 8 yesterday,
Okay.
but then I saw another thing 4 to 6 today. So yeah, it sounds like moderate to high grade for him. So I think a few people ask it, like, because it wasn't initially reported, he actually suffered in last week's game. I haven't had a chance to go back and check the injury mechanism. I always like to do that just for, I'm weird like that, but I will go back and check. But yeah, multiple weeks on the sideline for him. And then Taumalolo, there's been no indication on the severity of his calf injury. So yeah, not much to give there. It could be a week. It could be 6 weeks. We really don't know.
No, not really any fantasy fallout things from there either, I don't reckon. So we'll move to the Storm versus Tigers. So Fonua Pole is the only one listed here with a meniscus concern, Brian. We only had that game today, so we probably don't have too much more to go off here, do we?
Yeah, the only thing that was interesting there is that there wasn't, once again, not a super obvious mechanism. And Benji said in the post-match that he had an ongoing meniscus issue that he was playing through.
Okay.
So the only thing to point out there is to show you, like, even with a guy like Greg Marzhew, for example, if it does end up being a meniscus issue, it's something, depending on where it is, that guys can play through at times. And Fonua Pole was obviously doing that, but now he's aggravated it. Does he have to, does he have to go in and get something cleaned up? It makes it more likely. I think they're going for more scans. The only thing with the Tigers, mate, like obviously they looked pretty shot all the way across, but like Brent Naden was real surprised to see him named again this week and thought he looked pretty underdone again today. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch too. A few guys playing through knee issues for the Tigers.
Yeah, most definitely. I certainly didn't see the scoreline being what it was today. Otherwise, I would have captained Pappenhausen, which is what we'll get to in Supercoach Corner as to how I somehow missed the boat there where nearly every other Supercoach did. So I sort of had a little bed shit there personally. Last game was Manly versus the Sharks, but no injuries out of this one to speak to as it stands here, Brian. Was there anything else that we missed from that game, or no other sort of updates there?
No, I couldn't see anything. I mean, it was the last game of the day, and it was pretty hectic. But yeah, I couldn't find anything from it. I met the only one was Braden Trindle with his HIA, but he came back on,
which wasn't. So we'll just launch straight into the questions there. So thank you again to everyone who submitted these through the broadcast channel. First question, Brian, is a Will Warbrick question. Do we have an estimated return for Will Warbrick? So I'm just having flashbacks to whoever that was at Magic Round calling you a physio didn't have a degree about Will Warbrick. Sorry, it just was racking through my brain there as I was asking that question. But we haven't heard anything on the concussion side for him yet in a little bit.
Yeah, mate. I promise I do have a physio degree, even though I'm about to tell you I can't
I'll
give you
check your APRA number, mate.
Yeah, can't give you a firm return date on Will Warbrick. I included this because there's just been so many questions. People are so interested in him. Look, the news that I do have is that he's still not back at training, and I think that is a regression. The Storm are being pretty mum about information with him for good reason, because I think this sounds like a pretty concerning situation overall, as these concussion issues can be that linger on for multiple weeks, but he's still not back at training. So I think the biggest thing I would say is that even if he gets back to training, I doubt that he's going to get back to training and play by that weekend. They're going to get him back to training, give him a couple of weeks to kind of acclimatize. So, yeah, it sounds like there might have been a bit of regression there in his symptoms. So he may be up against it to return in the next couple of weeks. So, I mean, yeah, we know with these concussions, we've covered it a million times before. They are so unpredictable. It's like a snowflake. Each one is very unique. So, yeah, just thoughts with Will Warbrick. And it could be 2 weeks. It could be 6 weeks. It could be season over. You just don't know with these concussions, which is the concerning part about them.
Yeah, most definitely. Second question, Brian, is about Cameron Murray. He said over the weekend he was planning to return this year. Are we thinking that's a likely scenario?
Oh, mate. It was at like a Rabbitohs event. So I'm assuming this was just talking to, to members and staying positive and those kind of things. Because otherwise, yeah, it's an Aaron Rodgers 2.0 situation, mate.
Yes,
Where I just don't see, people asking, is it possible? It absolutely is possible. And we could almost play the exact clip that we used for Aaron Rodgers with Cam Murray, because it's like he could return, at really any point where his function starts to be okay. It's just if he returns like sooner than the usual time frame, it's usually going to be probably two of two things. One, at a reduced performance rate, to have less acceleration, less speed, those kind of things, but then also at a higher re-injury risk. So it definitely is possible, but the question is like, is it smart? Is it doable? And I mean, yeah, with the injury concerns that Souths have had this year and the soft tissue strains and stuff like that, I just don't see how they'd be pushing him to come back this year. It would just absolutely shock me and kind of concern me a little bit. And that's from the outside looking in. I'm not, if he did come back, I'd be real nervous about something happening again, especially off the back of the infection and those kind of things.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, mate. I wouldn't have thought it would be because we spoke to him a little bit of time ago, and with the complications, it pushes that time frame out. It'd be really, really touch and go if even if the Rabbitohs made a deep finals run, would be maybe the only foreseeable way. And yeah, I don't know. They've got Wayne at the helm there. He's sprinkling the magic on Brien, so who knows? They might make a deep run. Don't want to rule anything out to do with Wayne Bennett, that's for sure. Question 3 is, why doesn't Tommy Turbo get his hamstrings taped full game? Seems like a perfect candidate for this, according to the question. Probably not as practical as it seems, Brien, is it, the old hamstring tape? Hey.
Yeah, mate, I think the important point to put here is that tape is only useful for certain things. For many things, it scientifically doesn't provide anything other than psychological. So like a general guide with things that tape is great for are things like ankle sprains, so particularly lateral ankle sprains, MCL sprains, these kind of things where we want to try and restrict the movement of a joint in a certain direction. It's pretty good for like shoulder dislocations as well. So if we want to stop an athlete's shoulder getting above a certain point, you can kind of strap it up really tight to prevent it from going up there. So good for those kind of things, but any kind of muscle strains, these kind of things, yeah, you could maybe argue it has a little percentage here and there, but it's just nothing. Like the only way that I even allow my athletes to do it is if they say it really helps put my mind at ease. Like they're ticking all the boxes, everything. But if they need that little bit of extra security to be like, yeah, like it just makes me feel better about it. You're ticking all the boxes. Yep. Okay. We can put the tape on because I know in my mind it's not doing anything. Like it's not doing anything physical. So that's kind of the way I approach it. And I assume most physios are pretty similar with that kind of approach with things like muscle strain. So yeah, that's why he probably doesn't get it taped, because it probably doesn't, he's probably in his mind, I assume, really confident that he doesn't need it.
Yeah, good summary, Brien. No other points from me to add there. Next question is still on the Turbo train, but with Brian To'o and Tom Trbojevic this weekend, they sort of both looked a little bit underdone is the question here. With Origin coming up, do you think they look like they're right for Origin 1? I guess Origin 1's still a couple of weeks away, so it's probably a bit too early, isn't it? A bit premature.
Yeah, well, the only thing is To'o doesn't play again, mate. He's got a bye next week. So, it's like you've kind of only got, and I thought he did look underdone. Like he certainly didn't look like his usual self. We'll talk about an Origin Smokey, who I've got coming up very soon. But yeah, I wouldn't be against particularly To'o. I think Turbo still looked okay. He didn't look quite as limited as To'o necessarily. But Turbo's another one, mate. Like he's just had that many injuries. I know you want to pick, but like the New South Wales have got so many centres. Like Bradman Best would as a Queenslander, I would be petrified if Bradman Best is named at left centre, like versus Turbo. Like I probably arguably me more, and this isn't even like, me trying to convince New South Wales. So I know Laurie Daly, very big fan of this show, and listening in. But it's not even me trying to pull the wool. Like Bradman absolutely carved us up last year. And Tommy Turbo's had a lot of injury concerns. He's still building back to full fitness. I'd be way more concerned about Bradman Best named at left center. Tell you another person I'd be way more concerned with, Latrell Mitchell named at left center. Either of those guys. So yeah, my hot take is I probably definitely wouldn't pick Turbo in the centers. And that's coming from a guy who loves Turbo. Listen to any of our shows from any time. Big Turbo guy. And yeah, I think off the back of To'o, I've got a little Smoky who I'd pick over him even at this point. What did you think of those two guys, mate?
Yeah, I didn't sort of catch a lot of the Penrith game, so I didn't know how Brian To'o looks. But I guess runs on the board for To'o. He's been so many big games of footy. I can't see how they won't pick him and get him right. I guess on the Latrell Mitchell's thing, when you mentioned him at left centre, I just reverted into like what your dad has been like over the Broncos, not being able to sleep for a day. If they name Latrell Mitchell, I will not sleep for a week because every single thing I can think about him in Sky Blue is just him destroying us. Especially that year that we got done 3-0 when all the games were in Queensland, that COVID year. Mate, Latrell absolutely destroyed us there. And now he's fit Trell with Wayne in his ear. Oh my God. Just please, can we not see Latrell Mitchell opposite us? That absolutely is terrifying to me. So hopefully, from a Queensland point of view, the Blues stay away. But I think Laurie will have Latrell firmly in the plans. And after what he did on the other night, I think the hype's there now as well. I can't see him missing, to be honest. That's for sure. Question, the next one is about Zach Lomax, Brian. Do you reckon he'll come straight back and goal kick once he returns from injury?
Yeah, mate, fit to play, fit to kick comes in here. The only thing I'd say is we've seen Mitch Moses not do it. I think with Moses, he's got that added concern, being the re-fracture, it's a shitty bone. Like, we've got Lomax coming back after only missing like 4 or 5 weeks. So I assume the fracture isn't that bad. I wouldn't see why if he's back out there playing, he should be fit to kick. And particularly I think like the Finns probably only won on the weekend late last week because Sean Russell missed so many goals. So yeah, I'd be thinking Lomax back in and back to kicking.
Yeah, I agree with you there, mate. I wouldn't sort of add anything differently. Next question is about Braden Burns from the Cows. He was supposed to be a 4-week injury in approximately round 2, but it's been a lot longer than that. Is there any update on Braden Burns?
Mate, so many questions like this every week. Guys, check New South Wales and Queensland Cup because Braden Burns has been back playing Queensland Cup for a few weeks. As long as Rugby League Project is accurate, which I assume it is, he's been back playing Q Cup. So yes, he's back. He's playing Q Cup.
Very good. Next one is a Q Cup superstar, Trey Fuller from the Finns, who got a few games for the Finns last year. How's he going with his ACL recovery and his expected return to either, I guess, Cup or the top grade?
Yeah, so I think he's going to come back through Cup. Being an ACL, someone like Trey Fuller really heavily relying on that explosive change of direction, those kind of things, which we often see guys take some time to get back from. I think 9 months for him it's pretty it's round 15 plus. There's been no news. I think being mostly a Queensland Cup player, there's been really limited news on how his recovery is going. But you assume ACLs are pretty predictable these days, so I would be thinking around 15-ish kind of return for him at this point in time. But even then, I'd be surprised to see him go straight to the NRL just purely because he's coming back off that ACL. I know Hammer might miss a few games here and there with Origin, but yeah, I'd be thinking, you've got someone who could go back to fullback. I'm sure they've got Averillo, could potentially go back to fullback, those kind of guys. And we've got guys like Fiona and Junior Tupou. Yeah. There you go.
Oh,
perfect.
God.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't see him having a big impact this season. I'm thinking more next season for Trey Fuller.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've got a little bit of a connection to the fullback playing Queensland Cup for the Redcliffe Dolphins, who I work with, Zach Miles, and he's second in the tackle breaks at the moment, doing pretty good things there. Went down from Sunshine Coast this year to Redcliffe for an opportunity. He's been playing pretty good footy there, Zach Miles. So shout out to Zach. He's a ripping fella, who I work with up there at the sunny coast. But yeah, making a little mark there down at the Redcliffe Dolphins. The next one is about all the HIA shenanigans. What's the most memorable one that you've seen that you thought, oh my goodness, how did that pass? I think there's a question here that says, Siwa Taukei'ao in the Bunnies versus Roosters sin bin game when he was playing the ball sideways and then he came back on the field was probably his highlight. Do you have any ones that you can remember there, Brian? I've got a couple pre the HIA times that I can remember that are sort of quite iconic, but any ones that spring to mind since the HIA rules have been introduced that you're like, oh my goodness, how did that get through or how did that happen?
Well, I think the biggest standout one for me is the Boyd Cordner in Origin, because I feel like it was like a watershed moment where the NRL actually came out and publicly said that he shouldn't have gone back on the field, which maybe this is my bad memory, but I don't know if they've done that before or since, where they literally came back out and said Boyd Cordner should not have gone back out on the field. So that was I think that was almost the birth of the independent doctor for me, that case where like the NRL kind of coming out. And I wonder whether there was massive backlash for that, the fact that the NRL came out, because now it's like the don't ask, don't tell thing, where it's like no one is ever going to publicly comment on HIAs ever from a medical standpoint. And I wonder whether there was massive backlash there. So, because Boyd was all over the place with that one. But the other one, which always sticks out to me, is oh my God, the guy from the Raiders. I said it to you before we came on the show, Morgan Smithies. Morgan Smithies last year. He was all over the shop, and I saw him, like get named and find the next week. That was, and I mean, Corey Horsburgh nearly joined that group, like this week after the shenanigans. But I mean, you can name 100,000. We've spoken about the limitations of the head injury assessment and how subjective it is. But I think there's been a few there, mate. The age-old ones, which I'm sure you're going to mention. There was some, So, I mean, it's concerning now, but at the time you were like, holy crap, how are they back there?
The one I would never forget, I don't know why it's ingrained in my brain, but just Dallas Johnson off the kickoff, put his head in the wrong spot, got absolutely rissoled, and he somehow stayed on the field and he was absolutely gone. So, thankfully, for more recent times, we're a long way past that. But there's few in those sort of bigger games, the grand finals and the State of Origin games in years gone by, where it was just like, oh, you just got to get them back on. And after the game, they're just like got no recollection and all those sort of things. So hopefully we're past those times. Next question, Brien, is about any tips for a level 1 sports trainer who recently did the course but had kind of forgotten most of it. That's pretty funny. I hope it's tongue in cheek, because that would be a bit sad if you went to a whole course and couldn't remember a thing. It's a bit concerning. What would you say if this is legit, or if this is actually just tongue in cheek and humor?
It's a lot to remember. So I do understand that. We kind of think that as physios at times, but I think this is very relevant to you, mate. And I think we've told this story on the podcast before, when I was in first year physio and just a spectator at a rugby game that you were playing in, and there was no sports trainer, and they needed one to for the game to go ahead. So I had to, you and Paddy just came over to me and you're like, you're a sports trainer. Like, just, you've got your qualifications, just say you have. And I was like, yeah, that's sweet. Like, what do I have to do? And you're like, nothing will happen. It's fine. And you've thrown the big Carmichael Hunt left footer, gone down untouched, and I've gone, oh my God, that was this is my first injury analysis via mechanism, mate. I was like, he's blown an ACL 100%, came off. And then you were like, after about 5 minutes, you're like, yeah, no, I think I can go back on. And so my advice to this guy is, if there's a non-contact knee injury and the guy wants to go back on, don't let them back on, because I didn't let you back on and it got confirmed the next day or whatever that you'd blown your ACL. So thank God we did not let you back on.
Yeah, good memory for you. Not great for me, Brien. That was not a very fun time doing the old
I remember
ACL.
the scream, mate. I remember the scream. It was cooked. Yeah.
Initially it was not a great feeling, that's for sure. I wasn't having a good time with that one. But I don't know, the level 1 sports trainer, I think, I don't know, just get some tape on it. That's probably the main thing for sports trainer, isn't it? Just, what do you want? More tape? Yeah, go for it. Like, we'll just tape it up and crack on. That was like a lot of the early door stuff for sports
and
training.
If in doubt, sit out when it comes to head injuries.
That's the other one. That's legit advice. Mine was definitely bullshit advice, but listen to Brien there with some legit advice there for head injury stuff. What about, last question here for the broadcast channel, Brien? Any Origin smokies this year? This could be a G up, or this could be, do we do it as what we would like, not what we think will happen? I think we do what we would like, don't we?
Because I think if you go what will happen, you've got Kurt Catewell on the bench. Ruben Cotter's starting on an edge. Who knows what Laurie Daly's going to do? Like, some of the selections he served up. So I feel like none of the selections that they're going to make are fun. So I don't want to talk about non-fun things on the podcast. So I'm going to talk about my fun Origin smokies, which my big one is my boy Kiraz, mate. Like, get him on a wing. He has looked insane the last couple of weeks. Like, he is absolutely ripping and tearing. My hot take is, To'o runs on the board. I get it. But, just get Kiraz in there, mate. I love him. I think he'd be great. My other one is Bo Firma. I think, like, I'm just not the biggest Jayden Sewer guy. Like I just don't see it. I think Bo is in his second season back from the ACL. He's looked really, really good. I just think he would be really, really solid on an edge for the Maroons. And then my other one is, and this is going real loose, but if Kalen doesn't show much next week, mate, just get my boy Hammer in at fullback. Just put him in there. Just get him in there. He's literally sleeping with the enemy in Jamie Chapman. So he's got their secrets. He knows he'll get the job done for us, Hammer. So yeah, love Hammer anywhere on the field, but particularly at fullback. What do you got for me, mate? Who's your Smokies?
Yeah, I just thought then I'd love to see Turbo at fullback because we haven't seen Turbo at fullback in the rep arena. And I just think, he's played wing, he's played center, he's done all these things for Manly, but we just haven't really seen Tom at his best in a big game, if you know what I mean. We haven't seen Manly in a grand final with him there, or I can't even think of Manly being in a prelim with him there. It just seems to be forever sort of injured at the pointy end of the season. I'd just love to see him in the business end of the year doing things. Like from a Queensland perspective, it seems like centres are probably an area that might be up for grabs, or wing spot, maybe. It's a bit of conjecture. I reckon like after what Rob Toya did to Herbie Farnworth, that's very vibey. If he said, oh, here's Rob Toya, he can play right centre, where he gave Herbie an absolute bath. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I saw, Rob Toya just destroy Herbie Farnworth that night. The other one is Jackson Purdue is playing unbelievable football at the moment. There's a bit of a North Queensland vibe to that. I'd sort of love to see that. The other one I do like Brien, and if he was a Queenslander, oh my God, I'd just do anything to get him in the team, is Keon Koloamatangi. Plays middle, plays each edge. He's such a good, solid footballer. It's got skills all around. I love Keon Koloamatangi, but I'm not too sure. I haven't seen many predicted teams with Keon in the team, but I just think positional versatility, he is unmatched there for any of the forward bench spots. You could play him at 13 or 11 or 12 if you wanted to start with. But yeah, New South Wales have got a lot of options there. So I think there's some interesting things. One that might be loose, there's a lot of like, is it Moses? Is it Cleary? I'd really love to see Lockie Galvin at 6 and just see what happens. Can you imagine? Like, it'd be good because I think he'd play well. But imagine if you put like Galvin with like even Mitch Moses. Can you imagine the uproar? They'd be like, oh, he's already signed for Para, and then be like blow-ups deluxe. I just reckon a genuine 6 who's like up and coming and playing really well. And he gets, there's so many narratives there. He might be going to the Para Eels. He gets it over Jerome Luai. He might be partnered up with Nathan Cleary. There's all these things that would spiral from it. It would be unbelievable media, but it won't happen. But I think that would be the loosest thing I reckon you could possibly imagine there for Lockie Galvin getting 6. But I'd love to see Turbo at fullback, to be fair. Queensland hat well and truly on, but you want to see, I think when you think Dylan Edwards, James Tedesco, Tom Turbo, what does it look like? What are we dealing with here? It'd be awesome.
I love it, mate. I love it. Let's go into SuperCoach Corner. Mate, the scores are just bonkers again. Unfortunately, we both did not captain Paps, which is, like you think both scoring mid 1500s, we'd be happy, but I'm pretty sure we're both not happy today. So yeah, hit us with your score and what are we going to do? How are we going to keep, we're still scoring well, but how are we going to keep moving up the leaderboard, mate?
Yeah, good question. So I skippered Payne Haas to the tune of 1582. So I VC'd Ponga. And honestly, Brien, between you and me and the listeners, I would have, if I didn't see Haas, I would have seen Cleary. So I'm not going to sit here and say, I would have definitely done Pappenhausen. I wouldn't have. Like I was either Haas or Cleary. I got a little bit scared when Ponga went so little. I was like, oh, this feels bad. It feels like I might just need to put Haas on it. And I just thought the Broncos would respond massively off the back of a really embarrassing Magic round, but they just didn't. It was really, Payne Haas had that line break early, and I was like, oh, we are on here. We're on an absolute heater, but it didn't eventuate. Anyway, so I traded in this week Fletcher Sharp and Laurent Patea at the front row position just to downgrade some cash. I traded out Ben Trbojevic and Lockie Hubner. So that sort of is the way I work things out. So Sharp was, a good trade in from that point of view. He's going to be great over the bye period. This week, I'm probably looking to generate cash, I reckon, but it really hinges on the Nicholson news, because if he's missing, I'm probably looking at Corey Horsburgh to Zach Hosking if that injury is long-term. I kind of like Keon Koloamatangi at price. I like Jayden Sewer at price, but he's maybe origin pending. Isaiah Papali'i at price is good as well, but he's on the bye this week. So I don't know what the best option at second row is. I really think Hosking is probably the one, and I don't reckon I can really justify pulling the trigger on Cam Munster down to King Tonga this week. I'm a Jayden Campbell owner and a Cam Munster owner. King Tonga is obviously the cash grab at 6 if you wanted to do that, but I just don't know if that really makes sense for me right here, right now. I'm sort of tempted just to roll the dice and try to run Munster and Campbell as long as I possibly can. Because the thing is, King Tonga doesn't play 12, but neither do Munster or Campbell. So I'm sort of without anyone either way. Is it worth a trade in to generate cash? Where do I spend it on? It doesn't just feel good enough for me, just given what Munster was able to do this week and what Jayden Campbell was able to do this week. So don't know. The other option is Kalen Ponga to Tom Trbojevic is super risky. I don't have the balls to do it this week because we don't know the New South Wales squad. So I'm happy to roll Kalen Ponga versus the Eels for one more week. But week 12, I'm going to be watching that New South Wales team like a hawk. And if Turbo isn't named, he is just got to get launched into your team. I think he's only about 620 as it stands, Brien, with a big negative or big break even. I think he's about 110 break even. So, everyone's probably going to trade him in for this period, but I think he's just got to be at the top of your list. There might be some people that are a little bit scared that, he's been injured for in the past, but I think he's straight back on. If he's playing over the Origin period, he could absolutely rip. So I'm a James Tedesco owner, so I don't have Scotty Drinkwater, but I'm probably looking at him at round 13. I'm going to have to pay the piper. But if Teddy's playing Origin, then that's a pretty sideways trade. Like Teddy and him are pretty similar in price, so I'm not too worried about that. If I had to get to Ponga up to Drinkwater, that would be a bit scarier. So I don't really know what I'm going to do there. I think round 13, Brien, might be when I use my final boost. I think I might have, we'll know by then who the Origin contenders are. It'll probably be a Keon Kolomatangi trade in. It might be a Drinkwater trade in. And I really, Brien, I've said this a couple of times, but I'm frothing on Campbell Graham at his price. He's like 410. I just think, the Bunnies are getting a little bit back. Latrell's going to be playing Origin, but I think Campbell Graham will eventually come good as the year goes on. He's got a decent break even and he misses round 12. So I really like him to downgrade some money and keep your center wing rolling a little bit more. He's pod as well. He's not highly owned whatsoever. So that's sort of the imminent plans here. I don't know. This week is I think it's probably a Hosking move. If I can get there in one trade, I might even just do the one, Brien, because I don't like the other cash grab options outside of King Tonga, and I just don't know if I'm invested enough given what I've got running at 6 already. So that's where I'm up to as it stands now. How did you bounce in this week, mate? And what are your plans for, I guess, next round and then coming up to 12, 13?
15.57 for me this week, mate. I brought in Sharp and Jazz Tavanga, which is a bit of a left field one, but I was kind of tossing up between him, Piakura, and the young lock from the Dragons. I'm horrible with playing
Stewart,
names. Stewart, yep. So I was kind of tossing up between those three guys, and I think Tavanga, just with a little bit more, has been decent in Supercoach in the past, starting a lock. They had a back on the bench, so I was pretty happy with that. But, I was a bit disappointed that he didn't come back on until about 20 minutes ago in the second half and played hooker. Still scored, 47 or something like that. So for a guy's 300K, it's an okay trade in and covers me over the buys. So hopefully Jake Trbojevic gets picked for Origin again, mate, and they start playing Jazz for 70 minutes. Billy Smith and Tom Can't went out for me. Mate, I have captained Payne Haas for his 2 lowest scores of the season. Now, the only scores below 80, and I've captained him for both of them. So I think, that's just dirt. I can't cop it. I was angry as McSeany was about the Broncos overall.
He did update 89. Did he?
Yeah,
update 89.
Oh, perfect.
Right.
We're good. Okay. I'm happy now.
Right.
I'm happy now.
You're Supercoach genius, mate. Shut up. All good.
Sweet. Yeah, I knew it all along. I knew he'd be fine. He was
fine.
like, when I last looked at him, it was like yesterday afternoon, and he was like 70 something, and I was
he updated quite a lot.
Oh, perfect. What a play from me, really. Just
he scored more than Latrell. Don't worry. All good. Even Latrell had that awesome try at the end. That was like a barnstormer.
So not captaining Pappy only cost us like 90 points now as opposed to 110. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Yes. So my plans, if Nicholson's out long term, I just think Hosking's wonderful. Like I think just having looked at his price before, I think he'll just be under 500K, which I think is pretty good going for him. I'll have to look into it a little bit more because otherwise, like, Koloamatangi is red hot. But my main concern with buying Koloamatangi this week is, once again, it's Laurie Daly, mate. You just don't know which way he's going to go. Like, he could go, yep, I need someone who can play edge and middle. Koloamatangi's my guy. He might like him more than Olakuatu, for example. So, yeah, like, it's just I'd be really hesitant to buy Koloamatangi. I think even his break evens only going to be 30 odd or something like that. So it's not like he's going to shoot up in price. So if I look into it and Hosking's kind of not anything that super, attracts me, I might go for the first time. Oh no, I went no trades after round 1, but for the second time, I might go no trades. I think Marzhew, if he's out for 4 to 6 weeks, he probably has to go.
Yep.
So he would go to someone. I just think the trades that I'm eyeing off, like an Adam Dewey down to King Togia, do I do that, or up to Jayden Campbell potentially? But once again, I'm a bit hesitant to bring in guys for like a week and then they're out for the week after that, even though someone like Dewey is. Ponga sucks, and I don't know if I can hold much longer. I really want to, probably my aim should be, when I sit down and think about it, is build up a war chest to go Ponga to Teddy in, like, not next week, but the week after, or even next week, really. But because I think Teddy's break even's only like 30 or something. So I'm like, if he scores 100, I mean, you're buying him at 890 grand or something like that. But I think
that's what Drinky's at. Like, Drinky's
I was just about to say,
yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to have to do that with Drinky, which I managed to buy Drinky at 700 grand or something like that. So swings and roundabouts. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I might even end up doing the Dewey to King Togia move, and then potentially, if Marzhew's out, like Marzhew down to Hosking, because that would give me enough then to
that's a good one.
to go up. The only other one I wanted to shout out was Piakura. I think in a pretty dog shit Bronx team, he's been pretty good. I nearly bought him this week and probably should have once he kind of got switched, because I went off him when he got named on the bench, but then he switched to starting, in the 1 hour thing, and he's only 260k. I think he'll be like 300k. He's playing 80 minutes. He scored 60 odd on the weekend, scored 50 something the week before. I mean, not much pedigree there, but it's not like the edges that the Bronx are doing much anyway. So, if he can lock down something there at 300k, it's not the worst buy ever. But yeah, I think trades wise, I'm looking at definitely building a war chest to go after Teddy, as long as he's not picked for Origin. And then the other one, which I'm tempted by this week, is Cleary to Hughes. I think, Cleary's out obviously this week and next week with Origin. Then he's backing up after Origin. Like, there's a real world where he could miss the next 3 weeks. So, that's a trade that I'm really heavily considering as well, if I don't have to build up a mega war chest for. But that's probably more around 13 trade, I think, once Hughes has passed his buy. But yeah, how must do you think Teddy is if he misses out on Origin? You reckon I should be moving heaven and earth?
Yeah. I think it's the same as Drinkwater in round 13. I think it's a heaven and earth chat. I think if Teddy's not named, he's just got to be in your team. Their buy coverage is so good, and his scoring's so good. I think you just pay what you pay. I think the same about Drinkwater, to be honest. Like, it was kind of like, I think you went Drinky at the time, then I went Teddy, and then, we're going to meet in the same spot where we're like, all right, well, I need that other guy now that we're at round 13 and we're looking to launch. So the only other one I was thinking, Brien, that's like not highly owned is Joey Tapine. Holy hell, he's pumping out base, huge scores in the front row. Like, I'm sort of tempted to maybe go Munster, King Togia, go Horsburgh up to Tapine.
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be a bit point of differency, and he is just scoring so many SuperCoach points. It is insane. But, you got to pay to get there. I think he's at 720, I think, or something like that, Joey Taps. But my God, he's been putting up scores. It's scary hours.
100%. Oh, mate, I nearly went him. It would have been a few weeks back when I decided instead to go Siwa Wong.
Yeah.
Regretting. Like, Siwa Wong's been good, but really regret, because I would have got on Taps at almost his lowest point. So, one of those ones. But, all right, mate. I think that is about it for this week. As always, if you like the pod, give us a review, recommend to a friend. Mate, it is leading into Origin. and I'm starting to get the Queensland spirit levels really coming up around the eyeballs, mate. So it's good fun. I think I'll be rocking some form of Queensland paraphernalia. We've got the NRLW, the second game this week, so that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that as well. A standalone Thursday night game, mate. So we'll they've got NRLW Thursday night and then 3 NRL games on the Sunday to make up for it. So
Awesome.
You love to see it, mate. Love to see it. So yeah, up the girls. Hopefully Queensland can level it out and we can go to a decider in game 3. Would be good. But yeah, mate, I will talk to you next week. And as always, up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.